Who are you with? Who are you walking with? Who have you decided to be committed to? If we're committed to specific people, it's going to show up in our lives. If we're committed to pleasure, it's going to show up in our lives. If we're committed to being secure, it's going to show up in our lives, because we're going to go out of our ways to make sure that the things we're committed to having or experiencing are present in our lives. So if I'm committed to Christ, then I'm going to do things that almost guarantee that I'm going to be intimate and close with him, because that part is on me. God is not going to force intimacy or closeness on any of us. God is going to allow us to make daily decisions that either draw us nearer to him or create distance between us and him. And this is why God says this to us. He says to decide. Remember when Joshua was talking in the Old Testament? This was a declaration, a question that he posed to the people, but also a statement that indicates that we have to make a decision. He said, choose for yourselves this day who you will serve. Decide. And then God says later on in Ezekiel, he says this. He says, I have set before you life and good and death and evil, right? Just like he mentioned in Deuteronomy, basically. He says, I've set before you life and good, death and evil. He says, choose good that you may live. It's up to us to choose, because God is not going to force the choice upon us. We need to decide God. We need to choose God. We need to be committed to God. And when we're committed to him, we're going to live lives every day that draw us closer to him, that create intimacy between us and him, that help us to begin to draw from his character, to develop his character in our lives, so that we become to look more like Christ. We look more like God wants us to look, and we live more like God wants us to live. So what are you committed to? Who are you committed to? What have you laid your life down for? And what have you connected yourself to in this life? If it's God, it's going to show up in your life. And if it's something else, it's going to show up in your life. Today is the time for us to make a decision, and let's stick with that choice. And hopefully, my prayer is that your choice will be God.